This is a podcast showing the latest on the UK labour market for August 2011. For a transcript, email info@ons.gov.uk. This month we will compare the estimates for April to June 2011 with January to March. In the second quarter of the year, unemployment in the UK for everyone aged 16 and over was 2.49 million, up 38,000 on the previous 3 months. Employment for everyone aged 16 and over stood at 29.27 million, up 25,000, while inactivity for those aged 16 to 64 was 9.3 million, down 23,000. Looking at July 2011, we can compare June 2011 for the claimant count, which is a count of everyone in the UK that are claiming job seekers allowance. Note that this is not the same as everybody unemployed, as some people who are unemployed do not claim this benefit. The count stood at 1.56 million in July, up 37,100 from June. We will now look in a little more detail at the claimant count and how it has changed since 1992, which was just after the 1990s recession. The count peaked in December 1992, where it reached 2.96 million. It then fell through the 1990s before levelling off, rising slightly around 2005 before falling in the run-up to the recent recession. It then rose sharply at the onset of the recession, and it currently stands at 1.56 million. Looking at the differences between firstly men and also women, men are more likely to claim job seekers allowance. This is partly because more women are inactive and if not in employment are less likely to be seeking work. And also many women are ineligible to claim as they have partners who are in work. In July 2011, 1.05 million men were claiming and 512,000 women. This is the highest level for the claimant count for women since 1996. This month we will look in a little more detail at how employment is split up into those people born in the UK and those born outside of the UK. Firstly, let's look at how the population is split up. Currently there are around 50.2 million people aged 16 and over, and if we look at how this population is split up into those who are UK born or non-UK born, around 86% or 43.3 million people are UK born, with 25 million of them in employment. The remaining 14% or 6.8 million people are non-UK born, of which 4.1 million are in employment. Note that these estimates of employment are not seasonally adjusted, and so differ slightly to the estimates of employment mentioned earlier. If we bring up this graph, we can see how the number of people working in the UK who are non-UK born has changed since 1997. In the first quarter of 1997, there were 1.9 million people who were non-UK born, and this has increased over the period to 4.1 million in the second quarter of 2011. This means the number has more than doubled or increased by 116%. If we look at the percentage of total employment that was made up of people who were non-UK born, this stood at 7.3% in 1997 and 14.2% in 2011. We will now look at how things have changed in employment over the past year. Again, these estimates are not seasonally adjusted and so differ slightly to those mentioned at the start of the podcast. In April to June 2010, there were 28.9 million people in employment, and a year later, this stood at 29.2 million. Looking at the changes for those who are UK born, of the employment in April 2010, 25.05 million were UK born, and in April 2011, this stood at 25.0 million, a fall of 50,000 over the year. Now if we look at the changes for those who are non-UK born, employment in April to June 2010 stood at 3.86 million, and in April to June 2011, 4.15 million. An increase over the year of 289,000. Another thing to consider when looking at employment for those who are non-UK born are that some of these people are actually UK nationals. For example, the children of former expats born abroad but brought up in the UK would not count as UK born, even though their families had returned here when the children were very young. Let's look again at employment and how this is broken up. When breaking down total employment into those UK born and non-UK born, 86% is for those who are UK born and 14% are for those non-UK born. If we further split this up into those who are UK nationals and non-UK nationals, we see that 24.98 million, or nearly all of the UK born employment, is for those who are also UK nationals, with a small number of people who are actually UK born but not UK nationals. Looking at the non-UK born population and breaking this down, we see that 1.59 million people in employment who are non-UK born are actually UK nationals, with the remainder being non-UK born and non-UK nationals. So around 38% of the total number of people in employment who are non-UK born are actually UK nationals. So how does the picture look if we look at the change on a year for those who are UK nationals and non-UK nationals? Here again is the employment estimates in April to June 2010 and also in 2011. In 2010, 26.5 million of the employment was for those who were UK nationals, and in April to June 2011 this estimate stood at 26.57 million, up 71,000. For the non-UK nationals, in 2010 there were 2.41 million in employment, rising to 2.58 million in 2011, an increase of 166,000. So what we see is that while employment fell by 50,000 over the year for those who are UK born, we have actually seen an increase in the UK national employment of 71,000.